Hello everyone, my name is Deenaz Raisinghani and I am a Media Studies PhD scholar at the Department of Media and Communication, Savitribai, Phule, Pune University, India. My PhD research is on digitalization of Indian documentary and I research in the intersections of communication, documentary and digital media. My topic for this paper is Understanding First-Person Media with India's ElseVR platform. In the concept of immersive journalism proposed by Naomi during her experiments with VR technology and non-fiction, a first-person experience of news and news events are used to elicit a response by tying the news to the viewer's experiences within the story. Moving away from the contemporary first-person understanding of entering a virtually recreated space as a digital avatar, where body tracking technology is used to mimic the avatar movements and interactivities at play within the elements in the environment, a concept of place illusion or presence, as it is now called, is also at play in real, not just in recreated news events filmed using VR technology. Put simply, for a deeply immersive experience to happen in VR, all three components, place illusion, plausibility, and first-person representation, are necessary. In the first wave of VR nonfiction, as outlined in Rose, the 360-degree VR or spherical filmmaking arose to document projects, including in immersive journalism. Around 2017, an Indian lab named Memesys Cultural Lab was experimenting with 360-degree technology in a collaborative format, where technology met filmmaking, met journalistic stories, to produce India's first VR 360-degree app named ElseVR. ElseVR identifies itself as Asia's first dedicated virtual reality platform, a disruptive idea in narrative nonfiction and journalism. The 360-degree video experiences are available to view on Facebook, YouTube, YouTube 360, and through the mobile app, available to download on Android phones. The app interface is designed like a digital news magazine, where one can dive deep into the issue before or after viewing the film in VR by reading a journalistic report, clicking on the action tabs, leaving the app, and exploring more about the subject in the film. This is similar to the interface of the UN VR experiences in the UN Gear app, and has 5 videos that are listed in the app at the time of writing this paper. To begin with, let us step back in time and situate this paper in the context of scholarly theory. There has been significant disdain expressed on cinema's demise due to the escalation of mobile devices and portability through which viewing experiences happen. The cinema viewing experience has now shifted from social to one of individual portable viewership, unidentified by spaces they inhabit. The cinematic apparatus or dispositive, as theorized by Jean-Louis Baudry, has given us two distinguishable components. Cinematographic apparatus, which includes also in the case of VR, the combination of technology required to produce the film, equipment including the HMD and the production process, and apparatus, which is the projection of the film to the spectator. Baudry has argued that the impression of reality depends on the positions of the subject in relation to the image rather than the structure and content of the film. As Baudry points out, the cinematographic apparatus reproduces the psychical apparatus during sleep, separation from the outside world, inhibition of motoricity, etc. The cinema effect here is likened to the impression of reality caused by a dream. This argument of the cinematic apparatus is contextualized in my paper with relation to first-person media use in VR. This is through use of a framework proposed by Kate Nash in her scholarship on interactive documentary. She situates three positions in relation to the feeling of being there in factual VR experiences. These positions are that of tourist, encounter, and witness. This paper will attempt to understand the concept of first-person media and VR journalism within the framework of Nash's tourist, encounter, and witness positions. This will be analyzed with the journalistic stories developed in 360-degree video by ElseVR Labs. We take 3 case studies to explore the lab's work in VR nonfiction and how it could offer an understanding of the relevance of first-person media in non-Western environments. The first is the VR work Submerged by filmmaker Nishtha Jain. Submerged is an 8-minute 10 seconds documentary shot in 360-degree video about the flood crisis following the devastating floods in Assam, Bihar, and Bengal in 2016. One of the frames is reminiscent of the 2015 VR doc by the UN, The Displaced, which is a report on displacement and homelessness due to war. As Nash points out in her explanation of encounter experiences in VR storytelling, immersion and presence are two prerequisite elements of a first-person media experience to qualify as an encounter. The non-diegetic voice-over here is the only component that seems to create a feeling of stepping in and out of a space that is not one's own. A particular frame where the camera is placed on a boat gives the spectator a chance to experience a distanced immersion with a typical look to the camera, thus offering an immediate sense of proximity. In another frame, the casual laughter of the schoolgirls almost makes it an enjoyable experience going on a boat ride with them, thus offering the spectator a sense of touristic presence. Nash argues that in a touristic VR experience, the spectator is not directly at rest, and this sort of distance-protected immersion could be problematic in a factual VR such as Submerged, which deals with a rather serious climatic issue. There are moments when the role of spectator as tourist and spectator as outsider is pronounced as the villagers disembark from a boat into the flooded waters. In this sequence, the stylistic elements of an encounter are used. However, the gaze is very touristic. They are conscious of the spectator while being very nonchalant about their day-to-day struggles. You are an intruder into their space as they wade through the knee-deep water while taking turns to stare at you. The feeling of being seated securely on the boat while passing through ravaged huts and villages waist deep in floodwaters could mimic the touristic VR experience, which Nash describes as the bubble of the organized tour, air-conditioned cinema, or in the case of VR, the headset. However, there are moments in the film where the camera acts as a passive tool capturing the voices of those most affected and left to fend for themselves in the aftermath of a devastating flood in 2016. The dialogue, "This is not a lake, it used to be a field," places in context the very subject of the documentary. What seems interesting in this VR doc and other docs made by this lab, similar to the UN VR experiences, is the possibility of immediate civic engagement by offering plugs to literally take action by clicking on a few links in the app interface. But that does not happen within the VR experience. There is a lack of agency within the space the spectator has entered because even if they wish to engage with the content, as is the case with 360-degree videos, there is little headway to do so. It is not completely interactive in that sense. As Nash points out, immersion and presence are seen as being capable of producing moral responsiveness, an obligation to speak up or perhaps to act rather than to appreciate it. Funded by humanitarian agency like Oxfam India, this VR doc positions the viewer as the donor, talking to the affected beneficiaries in a natural setting. However, as previous scholarship on the empathy relationship with VR nonfiction has pointed out, the deterministic gaze that VR technology will solve all the problems of the suffering global poor is far too ambitious and problematic. I am not going to repeat the empathy machine debate here, as we do not have enough empirical audience evidence yet to determine how concrete the argument of for or against it is, I prefer to leave it open-ended. The second piece of work in this paper is the film Caste is Not a Rumour by filmmaker Pourush Turel. This is an approximately 5-minute long film in 360-degree video. This film highlights protests carried out to revolt against atrocities on the marginalized Dalit community in India. In one of the sequences, the viral video of the Dalit victims being flogged in public for skinning a dead cow is flashed on screen to include the journalistic mode of inquiry in the case. Access to such electronic media provides an imprint of reality, thereby establishing our role as a witness in the environment, having just accessed those media clips of the incident such that we cannot say that we didn't know. The formation of such subaltern counter-publics in India, as is evident in this particular VR experience of a protest by subordinated minority groups, seeks to introduce civic participation in the wake of rising cases of attacks on such marginalized communities and the apathy of the state. In a particular shot, the viewer is positioned to bear witness to testimony by the victims when they are listening to a recount of the situation by a Dalit community leader. The shift from merely following through with the events as they unfold to being a part of a guarded space where the victims feel safe to recount their experience as though a part of their world makes the viewer feel obligated to respond with action. This form of VR journalism, as witnessed in the case of Caste is Not a Rumour, highlights the necessity of first-person experiences in such environments. Although the risk of improper distance lies with the spectator in engaging with the experience, thus regarding a proper distance to avoid narcissistic self-communication, as argued by Chuliaraki, media witness experiences can work if the spectator is also reflecting on the immersion and social presence, recognizing one's own effective responses. In the wake of an empathetic reaction to the incident, there is also an objective purpose of the film, to engage with its core subject, listening to testimony. Listening to the other in a space where mobility is restricted gives this kind of 360-degree experience a validity. When Land is Lost, Do We Eat Coal? By filmmaker Faiza Khan and researcher Anuna Chandrasekhar reflects upon the development paradigm and the stripping of land rights to the villagers in Korba, a district in Chhattisgarh, central India, ravaged by state's coal mining activities. By following a protagonist in the story who is an Adivasi or tribal woman, unlike the other two VR experiences with no set central character, it evokes connectedness when the character speaks about losing her home and hearth to unplanned mining activities in violation of tribal rights. Most of the shots in this documentary are wide, long shots and focus on the character taking the spectator to the scene of damage, the incredulous expanse of the mining fields and unplanned activities that have made the native population landless. The spectator's encounter and witness positionalities are apparent here. Offline press conferences, screenings at popular venues, and dialogues with stakeholders accompany this initiative, just like the other two VR experiences, to discuss the subject of the film. Other initiatives taken by the Media Lab are installation of screening booths at regional film and art festivals such as KIF or Kochi Biennale, and even at metro stations in Mumbai. In this respect, these are not just stories demanding charity and international aid. These are stories also demanding civic participation and a community dialogue. Documentaries such as Right to Pray or Caste is Not a Rumour are acting as virtual agents of mobilization, urging the viewers to speak up, participate, dive deep into a story before they cast a vote. For a country like India, where severe inequities of access are present, will these efforts at VR journalism and narrative non-fiction storytelling help in bringing to light urgent stories from the global south? How quickly the adoption of changing technology to scale in a non-Western market adapts to filmmaking styles practiced by the Indian filmmaker, largely short of resources and representation, is a challenge that will need to be addressed. A study of the audience engagement with these experiences online on the Facebook and YouTube channels of ElseVR was also conducted. There's limited engagement of the journalistic content on the YouTube and Facebook platforms, and they range from fascination with the technology that they used to view the film to you actually responding to the content of the film. The affordances of VR technology, as has been pointed out in VR works all over the world, especially depicting humanitarian crises, carries the risk of improper distance in realizing the utility of this medium as more than just techno-utopianism, as mentioned in Rose, the turning away to explore the experience of transportation rather than taking the testimony of the other is a valid argument also established in this particular analysis of the three elsewhere 360-degree videos. Nash highlights the concept of spatial stimulation where the scale of representation matches that of the world, and so the line between real and unreal is blurred. This self-exploration of the space the viewer has entered and the exercise of sensory motor capabilities specific to this medium cause a jarring dissonance which can work against the very purpose of VR immersive journalistic stories that require rapt audience attention, especially the audience that is likely to take action on these stories. I argue that the growing demand for high-fidelity social media news use and mobile culture that encompasses the socio-economic populace of the country will lead to a demand for newer forms of short media consumption, especially consumption of stories that do not see the light of day in mainstream news. With mobile phone penetration and relatively cheaper mobile data availability in the heartlands of India, this form of narrative storytelling in an immersive format attempts to cause a shift in everyday journalism about grassroots issues usually told in a low-tech, two-dimensional format. Moreover, with more Indian filmmakers attempting to try out VR in their production process, while also showcasing regional narratives about their own people, seeks to dilute the Western gaze on stories from the global south. However, one of the prominent risks to humanitarian filmmaking about the poor suffering characters that the world wants to stare at the cost of being voyeuristic is also apparent here. The lack of interactivity within these 360-degree experiences is the downside of such experiences introduced in the early phase of VR when today there are a plethora of formats where the manifestation of oneself allows for deeper engagement with the stories. Regardless of medium used, going into the cultural and systemic histories behind the stories of oppression and resistance and engaging with them objectively is an overarching need for journalistic stories narrated for and about this part of the world. Thank you.